folks. Welcome to week 4 data platforms module overview. By this time, you should have completed the first 3 weeks of the data engineering specialization. And in this week, we're going to cover data platforms, namely Spark, Kafka, and Airflow. So these are the three major commonly used platforms at several companies in the industry and otherwise. So we feel it's necessary for you guys to understand this in depth, at least the fundamental concepts and the architecture, the design, the trade-offs, where these frameworks should be used, uh, what are the drawbacks, and other such things. So in the context of an interview setting for data platforms, a candidate who is familiar with these type of concepts and who has worked on these platforms stands a higher chance of nailing an interview than someone who does not. And so we see this as essential for you. So in this week, what you'll be getting is, first let's start with why do we even need a data platforms module. You are specializing in the data engineering domain, and so what we'll be offering is how these data platforms are commonly used in the industry, some case studies and use cases around them, and like I mentioned earlier, familiarity with these platforms in a hands-on way like definitely adds value to you as an interviewee. What does an interviewer expect in a data platform interview? What they would be looking for is generally they would give you like a design problem or a data problem, and see if you're able to mention the framework or um, like display your understanding of situations where these platforms can be used. Any type of case study. If it's a data pipeline or a streaming architecture for a social media platform or something like YouTube. They want you to mention these and understand what sort of design trade-offs happen when making use of these platforms. Um, if time permits, you would also be expected to come up with basic code or pseudocode for some fundamental operations. For example, if you're using Hadoop or Spark, you might be asked to perform some basic transformations or filtering operations. Understand how Spark code is internally faster than using MapReduce. What are the fundamental concepts in Spark code, like parallelize or transformations versus actions? So pretty basic stuff there, but they would be expecting that you are at least familiar with that. Oops, sorry. Yeah, they would be expecting that you're at least familiar with that. And sometimes when you're using these type of platforms, there could be some practical issues that arise. So they would expect you to be aware of those, mention them, and also mention what kind of mitigations or solutions you can offer. Yeah, that kind of covers why we need data platforms and what an interviewer would be expecting. Now, coming to the contents itself of this week's of this week's curriculum, what you'll be getting is the content that is focused on the common data platforms, Kafka, Spark, and Airflow, like I mentioned. You'll be getting foundational material. So foundation material will be shared well in advance before each live class, and it'll talk through the fundamental concepts, the design, the architecture, the basic. For example, in Kafka, you need to understand what's a producer, what's a consumer, what's a topic, what's an offset, and other such things like that. So all of these things will be covered in your foundational material. And at the end of when you finish covering foundation material, you should at least be familiar with the basic concepts surrounding each platform, the basic code and pseudocode. And the way we are testing this is we have certain learning objectives that we mention for each platform. And we'll be testing your understanding with relevant multiple choice questions. I think that's pretty standard. And this is probably the same format that you would have encountered for your previous weeks as well. And so kind of expect that uniformity for this week as well. Yeah, and that covers the foundational content for the live class. Apart from the basics that we share in the foundation material, the live class will be introducing you to optimizations and case studies in more depth. So, for example, in a practical setting, if you're setting up a Spark cluster or you're writing Spark code, um, what sort of parallelism should you use? What is the executor memory that you want to pick for your workload? Is your workload more compute heavy or is it more memory heavy? What type of shuffle intervals do you want to configure? I mean, the live class content actually goes into a lot of low level depth and introduces you to a lot of the nuances and trade-offs. And so you'll see in the live class that this content is pretty comprehensive, and it's created by uh, subject matter experts who have faced and dealt with these sort of production issues, and they know how the optimization should be performed and what kind of setting works best for which type of workload. And apart from the optimizations, we also introduce you to integration of Spark streaming with Kafka, which is actually a very common paradigm used in building streaming data pipelines. More recently, Spark streaming is getting phased out in favor of Flink, but Spark streaming and Kafka integration is sort of quite fundamental for anybody who wants to be engaged in building a data pipeline. That's very common. Yeah, and then we also offer you a couple of case studies. We have a Tinder data pipeline case study, social media, and a YouTube platform. And we kind of talk through all of these trade-offs and the design considerations in full depth. Uh, Similarly, for the foundation, you had MCQs. So similarly, for the live class, you're also going to have practice problems and potential interview-related questions. And then apart from that, you also have some practice questions with solutions that are also going to be provided to you. Yeah, so that I hope covers foundation and live class. Um, Digging into depth on the foundation material, you're going to have let's start with Kafka. So, you'll be introduced to the basic introduction, design, architecture, concepts. How do you set up the framework? What are the code examples for basic operations like consuming from a Kafka topic? Uh, the consensus protocols are somewhat a little more abstract and theoretical. They talk about how the different like Kafka is essentially a distributed system, so you have to maintain consensus amongst the different nodes in a Kafka cluster. And so there are various ways to do it, and consensus protocols go into that. We talk about how Kafka can be used as a messaging queue, what are the concepts around that, how it can be used in log aggregation, and then of course we have MCQs. um, Coming to Airflow, Airflow is basically a scheduling platform that is used uh, pretty widely in data engineering circles to schedule workflows. Spark jobs could be batch jobs, streaming jobs, and these jobs would be scheduled at periodic intervals, and they'll be pulling data from a cluster and then writing to a downstream component or something like that. So again, we go through the intro, design, architecture. What are the benefits of using Airflow? Airflow has some concepts called operators, hooks, and executors. And so we kind of talk through all of that. We provide you some sample workflows, talk through what a tag is, and then again you have MCQs. For Spark, again you have intro fundamentals, comparison with Hadoop, benefits, concepts, use cases, abstractions, of course some pseudocode, and then again MCQs. So this is sort of a very high level overview of what you will expect in your foundational material. And you're expected to go through the foundation material, of course, before you come to the live class, in order to get maximum benefit out of this course. And then coming to the live class, we focus on two main things, like, streaming applications. And we talk about how Spark streaming can be integrated with Kafka. And we also talk about uh, best practices configuration and performance optimization for your Spark code, like I mentioned earlier. This should be the majority of the focus for your live class. And then for case studies, we have online video streaming architecture, social media platform, and then Lambda architecture for the top movies viewed. And so these, in my opinion, these case studies are going to be really valuable for you in terms of interview preparation, because they'll give you all the trade-offs and all the aspects that you will be expected to mention or deal with in the course of your interview. So definitely um, put your thinking hats on and really try to dive deep into these case studies. They are really valuable. Yeah, that covers the module overview. Hopefully you have a good journey in this week's content, and good luck. This is going to be a really informative week, and all the best to you.